Hello everybody and welcome back to another math learning video. Today I brought you guys this problem here. X plus x times y plus y is equal to 54. What we need to do is we need to find values for x and y, find values that fill in the variables. But here we have a certain prerequisite that x and y have to be in this n value, and this n means they have to be natural numbers, which means they have to be positive whole numbers, okay? And for the sake of this problem, let's also say that x and y can't be 0, because if they can be 0, then we can simply set one of the variables to 0. For example, y, then it will make this 0, and then this 0. And then our x will simply be 54, right? So that is too easy. So we're going to challenge ourselves, and x and y basically have to be whole positive numbers that are not 0, okay? So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing to notice is that x and y here can be interchanged, right? So the value for x that we find and the value for y that we find, if we were to switch them around, we would still get the same value, okay? So it does not necessarily matter which value is x and which value is y, since we're adding an x and adding an y and we're multiplying them together. So both x and y perform the same functions here. So we just have to fill in two numbers that can be put in place for the x and y. So let's go ahead and get started. So I'm gonna just write out the equation one more time. X plus x times y plus y is equal to 54. Okay, so the first thing that I notice here is that these two terms on the left, both of them have an x, right? So when you're adding two terms together that have one of the same values, what you can do is factor it, okay? So with factoring out an x here, that basically means that when you factor something out, you're dividing the value by it, dividing the value in the inside. And you do this because once you take out the value, you're just going to multiply it on the outside. So let me explain what I mean to this. Let me show. So here, we're going to factor these two terms here, okay? That are in parentheses. And I took out the x. Why did I take out the x? Well, I took out the x because I see that both terms in the parentheses have an x in them. So they're both being multiplied by x. There are both factors of x, okay? You need to find factor. That's the most important. So when you pull out the x, you simply factor out the x from both terms, and then you see what the new value is without an x. So if we take out an x from x, we get a 1. That's because x times 1 is equal to x. So x divided by x is 1. So you can just divide by x to find. And then if we take out x from x times y, we simply get y, okay? And then x times, because x times y is x times y, obviously, I know. And then we still have this plus y at the end. So now we have this like this, the new equation. So what do we do next? Well, let me rewrite this right now. I'm going to rewrite in the inside. I'm going to write it as y plus 1, because then it will be easier to see that if we have a y plus 1 here and we have a y here. So what can we do to make these look the same? Well, I'm going to add 1 here, okay? So if I add 1 to this y, we have a y plus 1 in this parentheses here, and y plus 1 in this parentheses here. And then we can perform factoring like we did before. But you may be thinking, why am I being able to simply add a 1? Well, if you thought that, then that's good, because remember, you can't just simply add something to one side without doing anything to the other. So whatever you do to one side, you have to do the same thing to the other side. So in this case, we added 1 to the left side, so we have to add 1 to the right side to keep the equation balanced and keep the variables the same. So here we add a 1 because we added a 1 on the left side. That's why. And now we have x times y plus 1 plus y plus 1 is equal to 54 plus 1, which is simply 55, right? And now we will perform the same thing that we did last time, which is factoring. So here we have two terms again, right? That are being added by one another. And both of them, these terms are being multiplied by y plus 1. The left term is x times y plus 1. So if you take out y plus 1, we simply are left with x, right? And then on the right term, this y plus 1, if we take out a y plus 1 from y plus 1, divide it, we simply get 1. And remember, you can always check these factorings to make sure you're doing them correct by multiplying out the two terms together. And once you multiply them out, you should get the same thing. And so now we have that y plus 1 times x plus 1 is equal to 55. So what do we do next? So now on the left side, we see that we're multiplying two terms to each other, and both of these terms have one of the variables that we're looking for. So the left term has this y that we're looking for, and the right term has this x. So if we are able to substitute these values for real numbers, so this y plus 1 for real number and x plus 1 for real number, then we can simply just solve the equation and then solve for the variables. But which values should we substitute this y plus 1 and x plus 1 for? Well, what we need to find out is we need to find out two values that can be multiplied to get 55, and then we can simply substitute those values. So you may be thinking, oh, which numbers do I know how to take? Because 55, like any number, can be multiplied, divided, however, in infinite ways. Well, these two values that we're looking for has to fit our criteria that it is stated here. The x and y have to be real numbers, or they have to be positive numbers that are integers. So no decimals allowed, no zero, positive numbers, okay? So which two positive numbers come to mind and integers with no decimals come to mind that multiply to 55? Well, what's quickly comes to mind for me is 11 and 5, right? Since those are the factors of 55, 11, and 5 that are whole numbers, we will just simply set y plus 1. So let me explain this clear. 55 is 11 times 5, right? But we also have figured out that 55 is equal to y plus 1 times x plus 1. So 11 times 5 are two terms multiplied to one another, and y plus 1 times x plus 1 are also two terms multiplied by one another. So we can simply set these two terms equal to one another, since we both know that they're equal to 55. So if y plus 1 times x plus 1 is equal to 11 times 5, we can conclude that y plus 1 is equal to 11 and x plus 1 is equal to 5. So to find our variables now, we simply just write out y plus 1 is equal to 11. To solve for y, we just subtract 1. And this gives us y is equal to 10. And then our x plus 1 is equal to 5, right? And then we subtract 1, and then we get that our x is equal to 4. So here we get that our x is equal to 4, and our y is equal to 10. And remember, as I stated before, these numbers are interchangeable. So if we were to put y equals 4 and x is equal to 10, we'd get the same thing. And now to make sure that we did our problem correctly, I'm just going to go ahead and check our answers. So 4 and 10 are both positive numbers that are whole. So that fits our criteria for here. And now, if we just plug in and do the math, we get that 4 plus 4 times 10 plus 10 is equal to 54. So that's 4 plus 40 plus 10, which as a matter of fact is 54. So we did our problem correctly. So good job. So that is it for today. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.